Oh my gosh, guys. So this Harry and Meghan shit. And the way that Meghan has been talking about her experience as a mixed race black woman, and the way that she hadn't been really treated like a black woman, and didn't really have to talk early on. This is shit that I've talked about on this channel before, and I want to touch back on it because I think it is so important, and it's an important conversation to have. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that unambiguously dark-skinned black women have it the fucking worst, and that does not fucking change. With that being said, I would like to speak to my personal experience of being a mixed race black woman, because Meghan said that she didn't really have to talk, about how the world is going to perceive her as black. And to be fair, she said that for a lot of her life, she wasn't really treated like a black woman. And especially in casting as an actor, and I can attest to this, right? Because, they would put her up for black roles, and they're like, this is not really a black woman, but she's definitely not white either. It seemed like in the acting world, being ambiguous or mixed can be it can be hard, but at the same time, if you're a light-skinned mixed person, you're going to have some privilege. Especially nowadays, there's been like a discussion about how and why, mixed race, lighter skin, more ambiguously black women are cast in roles for black women, and that we don't see a lot of unambiguously dark-skinned black women cast in those roles or whatever. In certain spheres of influence, you're not being less ambiguously black can act as a privilege, and does act as a privilege. Colorism is very, very fucking much a thing. But at the end of the day, very often in situations in which your life depends on it, you're going to be viewed as black. And if you don't prepare your mixed kids for that, first of all, they're going to go through life confused. First of all, they're going to go through a lot of their years confused, because when you're a kid, you don't have a concept of colorism, or you are learning it, but because, adults will say fucking weird shit. If you have 3C hair or whatever, or looser texture curls and lighter skin, you will get complimented more. Within our community, by the way, within the black community, which is something that we as a community really need to unpack. But if you don't teach your kids about the fact that they will be viewed as black, especially in situations in which their life depends on it, they're going to find out, it's very likely that they're going to find out in a very traumatic way. Because my black parent was a very self-hating person, honestly. My father was a black man, and he made it very fucking clear his disdain for black women. He very much drilled into my head that being a black woman was not a good thing to be. He was very, very clear about the fact that he married my mom because she does not present, she's Hispanic, indigenous, she is mixed, she's mixed, she is mixed with African, European, and indigenous descent, but she does not really present really as a black woman, so very, very much. He made it very clear that he married her because of that, because he was one of those that was like, he didn't want his kids having no nappy hair. That is something that I very distinctly remember him saying to me. He did not prepare me for the reality of being a black woman. My mom did the best that she could. I have to say, while going through some traumatic stuff that has to do with my dad, but I don't think that I was properly prepared for the education of being a black woman either. Okay. Things would happen to me in college at the Air Force Academy, which is literally probably one of the whitest places on earth. something would happen to me between a teacher within the dorms like once a year. And because I was never prepared for how the world views me, I did not clock that those incidents were incidents of racism until much, much later. And it took my military sexual trauma situation for me to realize, because of certain details and stuff that happened that I won't go into, but my story is on here. You can watch it anytime you want. It's a lot. It's like an hour long. It took that experience for me to realize that I'm a Black woman. It took that to realize that at the end of the day, white America is going to see me as a Black woman. In some instances, in some situations, as far as like casting and acting and stuff, you will be more favored because of texturism, because of colorism, because of futurism. And I think that's something else that can blind mixed kids too, when you're receiving certain privileges that unambiguously Black women are not receiving. There can even be created this this illusion that race is not a problem for you, or racism is not something that you really need to think about. Some mixed people do play into the fucking colorism. You know, some people, you know, some of them very, very much do, like, just kind of quietly, knowingly benefit from colorism. But I do want to say that I think that a lot of mixed race kids just did not get the fucking talk. They did not get to talk. This doesn't excuse irresponsible actions as an adult. But I do want to say that a lot of them, including myself, did not really get the proper education needed to handle the world as a Black person, as a Black woman. As a mixed race person, there will always be discussion, or there will be arguments within the community and outside, but fuck them. Like, within the community of whether you're allowed to, you know, identify as a Black or not. And within the Hispanic community, there is a lot of jokes about people walking around with full ass fucking afros, using BB hair products and being like, I know Black Peppy, I know Black, wanting to separate themselves from Blackness as much as possible. which is like, okay. All of that, at the end of the day, when you are face to face with white America, it doesn't matter, because they are going to see you as Black. And because they see you as Black in certain situations, sometimes if you're doing a job better than somebody who is supposedly, you know, born to do it, you know, and you're being very good at what you do, you're going to be treated as a Black threat. That's just it. You're going to be treated as a Black threat. What you are allowed to identify as, or what you do choose to identify as, or what you try to erase out of your heritage, or what other people try to erase out of your heritage, that is a conversation for another time. And that is some internalized bullshit that you need to unpack, that you need to come to grips with. But when it comes to facing white America and the danger that is white America, the danger. It's the reason I have PTSD, guys. I'm telling you. I think that if I had been prepared, particularly by my Black parent, if I had been prepared by my Black parent to be perceived as Black, I don't know that I would have been able to avoid trauma, but I think I would have at least had the toolbox to face it head on, know what it is, and not feel like there's something internally just wrong with me, and just be confused. I think that I would have had the toolbox, I would have had the tools to be able to recognize what was going on much, much sooner, because it took months. In my particularly traumatic experience, it took months for me to finally latch on to the idea, or latch on to the concept that this was happening to me and similar things were happening to other people in my unit because I am a Black woman. I wasn't being believed because I was a Black woman. People did not take my pleas for help. They did not take my pleas for medical attention. They did not do that because I was a Black woman. And then I watched how white women on my base were treated by the same institutions, treated so much differently, treated so much better. In certain situations, the fact that you have looser curls, lighter skin, maybe more European features, those will present as privileges in some spheres, but in a lot of spheres, it will mean almost nothing, because all that institution, the system, the abuser will see is a Black threat. A Black threat of a different flavor, but a Black threat. Like, that's not a matter of opinion. It's almost completely separate to like what you're allowed to identify as, or what you do identify as. The fact of the matter is, white America is going to see you a certain way, and you need to protect yourself. You have to educate your kids that this is going to happen and that they need to protect themselves. I feel like a lot of Black parents don't do it because it's an inconvenient conversation. Some Black parents do it because they are self-hating and they want to erase their Blackness as much as possible. And so they actually actively encourage their children to separate themselves from Blackness as much as possible. Whatever the fucking reason, you're setting your kids up for failure. It set me up for failure. It set Meghan up for failure. Meghan learned the hard way. However you feel about her, Meghan learned the hard way going through this experience with Buckingham Palace, with the royal family, that at the end of the day, in certain situations, particularly some ones in which you may be in a life or death situation, you're going to be treated as a Black woman. If you don't teach your mixed kids this, they're going to be blindsided. It's not fucking fun. That's not a good way. It's not a good way to find out that you're Black. It's not, that's not necessarily a great way to come to grips or realize that you're Black. Especially when you're a kid and, like I said, you're looking in the mirror and you don't really know what colorism is particularly yet. And all you know is that you look completely different than how, monoracial people do, and you're very confused as to what to call yourself. You're very confused as to how people even see you. You may even think that you're fucking ugly because you're just somewhere in the middle and very confused. They need to know early on. That the world is going to view them as a Black person. What they're allowed to call themselves, deal with that separately. But for safety, for the love of God, give them the toolbox they're going to need to survive. Because it's going to happen. If you don't, it's going to be like surprise shouty later on, and it's not going to be fun. It's going to be traumatic. Their life may hang in the balance. And that's not okay.